Can you really make a full-time living with a blog? How do blogs actually make money anyway? And what are some great free resources to help you learn the business of blogging? We'll answer these questions and more on this, the 83rd episode of the DoughRoller Podcast.
Welcome to the DoughRoller Podcast, where the best thing money can buy is financial freedom. We help you make more, spend less, and invest the rest. And now your host, Rob Berger.
Whether you're just starting out, buried under a mountain of debt, or well on your way to financial freedom, this is the podcast to help you take your finances to the next level. Hey, everybody, this podcast is sponsored by Betterment, the most preferred automated investing service. Betterment has cutting-edge technology to optimize returns, minimize taxes, and save you time and money. Join over 34,000 customers who have already streamlined their portfolio management at betterment.com/roller. That's betterment.com/ROLLER. Well, listen, we got a great show for you today. Have a guest on the show, a good friend of mine named Bob Lotich, who is the founder of ChristianPF.com, a personal finance blog. I've known Bob, for a long time. I'm not quite sure how long I've known him. Probably since, I'm thinking 2008 or 2009. You know, when you start to blog, when I started to blog in 2007, I knew nobody. I didn't know any other bloggers. You know, but over time, you just start to reach out to folks, and then you start to meet more and more people. And fast forward 7 years, I guess, and I've been to conferences and all this other sort of thing. I fly out and meet with other bloggers once or twice a year, just so we can share ideas, tips, learn from each other. Everyone's sort of got their own different areas of expertise when it comes to whatever blogging, podcasting, newsletters. Trying to create great content for people. And I've learned a lot from Bob. He has actually written a couple of books about how he turned blogging into a full-time business, and just released one recently. And so I asked him if he would, come on the show, talk about, his books, but also his story, how he did it, what he did, what the challenges were. And so that's what I've got for you today. As I was thinking about today's podcast, I like to always, before the sort of main topic, have some kind of tip of the day, tool of the day. If you've listened to any of my previous podcasts, I tend to try to come up with something else. Sometimes I read an email I've received from someone. Today, what I thought I'd do is just list out some great free resources that you could use if you were interested in blogging. And my thought was, I would, just list some other blogs. There are blogs out there about blogging, and list some good ones. And, as I started kind of looking around and seeing what I might include in this list, a couple of things occurred to me. The first is, I by and large don't follow any of those blogs anymore. I used to at a time, and there are some good ones out there with some very talented bloggers you can learn a lot from. But somewhere along the lines, I just, there's too much stuff to get done in a day. I'm too worried about expense ratios and whether I should invest in a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA to be following a bunch of blogs about blogging. And it just hit me. I don't really follow those blogs anymore. I'll pop over to one or two of them every now and again to see what's going on. But by and large, don't follow them. And the other thing is, if you're totally brand new to blogging, it's very difficult to go to a blog about, even a good one about blogging, and really kind of understand what they're talking about, because you have no context for it. Certainly I didn't when I started blogging. And some of the sites, do okay with beginner content. But again, if you've had no experience with it, it can be really, really frustrating. And that's one of the things that I like about the way Bob approaches this topic, particularly in his first book, which was specifically designed for beginners. His second one, and we'll talk about both of them in the interview here in just a minute. But the first one was really aimed at beginners. The second one more for advanced topics. But that's what I liked about his books. He kind of covered the whole spectrum, whether you're just starting out. He's got something for you. If you're more experienced and you need some more advanced tips, he's got something there for you as well. So what I'm going to do in the show notes to this episode, and again, this is episode 83, so the show notes are doughroller.net/podcast83. That's where you'll find them. I am going to include a list of resources. Some of it will be stuff I've written. Some of it will be stuff that Bob has written. And some of it will be stuff, articles that other folks have written. that I think can help folks who are trying to understand this whole business of blogging. Either if you've never started a blog, don't have a clue, or maybe you've started a blog but you're not making any money. Maybe you haven't even tried to monetize your blog, and you kind of want to know how do I do that, or how do I get more traffic. But what I'm going to do is, rather than just listing a handful of blogs or sites that talk about this topic, I'm actually going to include links to specific articles. Because you can find a great blog, but unless you know the specific articles on that site that can be helpful to you, you can spend a lot of time searching for stuff. And if you're new to this, it's going to be really hard. So that's what I'm going to do. Again, I'm not going to run through them all in this actual podcast because I don't want to take up too much time. But I'm going to include that list in the show notes. Again, DoughRoller.net/podcast 83. And you can check them out if this is of interest to you. And as always, if you have any questions at all, well, about anything, but in this case, blogging, you can shoot me an email, dr@DoughRoller.net, and I'll respond to them. But I'm going to put that in the show notes as a way to kind of give you what I think will be useful information to help you get started if this is something you're interested in. And of course, I'll also link to Bob's books as well, which you'll hear about in just a minute. But so if you're interested, check out the show notes. Hopefully it'll help you. And if you have questions, feel free to email me. With that, let's get to the interview. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
I'm doing fine. I just got back from a week-long fishing trip in Orr, Minnesota.
Wow.
Which is not far from International Falls. And so I'm refreshed. I don't even really like to fish.
Really?
Yeah. For the listeners, if they follow the podcast, know that if they listen to the podcast about my rich dad and my poor dad, because my poor dad used to take me bass fishing.
Gotcha.
All the time, and I think I had done enough fishing by the age of 12 to last me a lifetime.
Gotcha.
But it was fun. It was fun. Caught some good sized bass. Although I caught like a 17-inch bass, which is a lot of fun. So I go all the way to Minnesota to do this. I come back. I'm at church.
How much does that weigh?
About 100 pounds. No.
Probably
3 pounds, 4 pounds, something like that. Nice. It's a fun fish. Bass will fight you. They go deep sometimes, and then they come up and they jump out of the water. And we catched and and we released it. We didn't keep it. But so I'm at church the day after I get back from this trip, all proud of my 17-inch bass that I traveled all the way to Minnesota to catch. And a good friend of mine who fishes all the time was telling me about, I went down to Burke Lake, which is this tiny, practically a pond near our home. Yeah, I caught a 22-inch bass. I thought, great. I went all the way to Minnesota for 17-inch bass anyway.
That's what fishermen do, right?
So, yeah. Well, he had a picture, so he had proof. See, that's, yeah. So you hail from St. Louis, is that right?
That's correct.
That's where you are today?
Yep.
Okay. Well, folks already know a little bit about you, that you blog at ChristianPF.com. But why don't you kind of tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into blogging?
So while I was in college, I started working at a local bank near us. And so I worked in banking as a personal banker and helped people open accounts and stuff like that. Did that for a few years. Then I moved on over to a brokerage firm. And I worked there for about 5 years in a variety of jobs, variety of different departments there. I just kind of bounced around in a lot of operational roles and stuff. So how far do you want me to go, Rob? You want me to just come all the way up to present day?
Well, let me ask you first. So what did you study in college?
Business. I mean, well, I was a typical kind of bounce around student for a while. So I actually started in architecture. I was an architecture major for a little bit. I really enjoyed architecture, but just once I got in there, I just kind of realized I didn't want to do that for a career. And then I moved over to audio production because I love music and love making music and being part of the whole process. So I did that for about another year. And then, I finally realized, all right, just get a business degree and be done with this. So that's what I did.
Were you in college for what, 7, 8 years?
It was actually only 4. I actually took a year off in between. So I did 2 years, then took a year off and kind of went to Florida, just hung out for a year, and then came back and finished up my degree. So technically it was 4 years of school, but over a period of 5 years.
You can't tell, but I was smiling when I asked you the 7 or 8 year question.
Well, I know. But.
Yeah. So did you graduate? So I know we're talking today about blogging and how, your blogging success and how others might try the same thing, and we'll get to that. But this is a personal finance show, so I got to ask you some personal finance questions.
Okay, let's
so
do it.
Did you graduate with any student loan debt?
Oh yeah, a ton.
A ton. What's a ton?
Well, I mean, for a business degree, it's a ton. I mean, not like a doctor or something. I had probably, I think it was about 35 to 40,000 of student loan debt, which I didn't need to have. I just took loans for everything because at that point in my life, I was not thinking ahead at all, just making a lot of stupid financial decisions, and that was one of them. So for me and for a business degree, I think that's a decent amount of debt.
Yeah. So how could you have come out of college with less debt?
Well, for one, one simple thing I could have done, because I bounced around from these schools, I could have gone to community college for a lot of courses. So after I got done with, or after I realized I wasn't going to be an audio production major and jump over to business, there were a lot of credits that I could have gotten at the community college for a tiny fraction of the cost. So I probably could have spent a year there and probably saved $15,000. Wow. I mean, so as simple as that,
Yeah.
But most kids don't want to go to community college because it's cooler to say you're at a university. So in hindsight, I wish I would have done that. But
yeah, I guess it's not quite the same experience. Although in Virginia, you can go to the community college system here for 2 years, and if you get the right grades, which is usually not that tough, like a 3.0 or something, it depends on the college, but you get automatic admission to any state school in Virginia, which includes some great schools like William and Mary, UVA, and Virginia Tech. You're guaranteed admission to finish out a 4-year degree. I don't know if that. Did you grow up in Missouri?
Yeah.
I don't know how many other states offer that, but it's
that's
a great
program.
opportunity. Yeah. So you were at a brokerage for 5 years, and did you go from there to blogging?
So I started my blog while I was working there, which I'm really glad I did, because I started it. So I started the blog in 2007, and then in the summer of 2008, I got laid off. We got bought out by a bigger firm, and they just cleaned house, and my whole department got eliminated because they had their own department that did what I was doing. So anyway, so I got laid off, got a severance package, and we got a little bit of a retainer agreement, retention package type thing to keep me hanging on until they really didn't need me to that last minute. So anyway, so with the severance package, and we saved up for a few months, and I decided to take the jump into full-time blogging, even though we were not making nearly what I was making at my day job. But it was something I just prayed about. I talked to my wife about. We built up our savings. Like I said, we had paid off, I believe, almost all of our debt at that point. And so that was, all those things just kind of factored into that decision to kind of take that jump into full-time blogging. So
before we talk about that jump, what did you do at the brokerage firm?
So I started in variable annuities, in operational roles like, processing applications and stuff like that. I did that for a couple years and then moved up to our bond department. And we had our own bond floor there. And so I was kind of working in some support roles there. And then after that, I moved over to our trust company, and I was part of the team managing a money market fund that we had.
So variable annuities, aren't those ripoffs?
I don't know. I mean, I think with most financial products, I think there's always somebody who they're a fit for, and I think there's people who they're not a fit for. And brokers are pretty well compensated for annuities. So I think there are probably some people who got them or get them who maybe shouldn't. But
Yeah, I'm just kind of giving you a hard time. I had Tim Holmes on the show, who's from Vanguard, and we talked about variable deferred annuities. They're a complicated beast, but we tried to make our way through them. So what does a bond floor look like?
In our case, we basically had all the bond traders in a big circle, I'm trying to think how wide, maybe, 50 feet wide, and they're all just kind of sitting in a circle. And, well, actually, most of the bond, I guess they were their assistants or something, were sitting in the circle, and then the traders were actually kind of on the floor. And so it's this big circle that's maybe 100 feet wide, if you can think of that as a diameter. Actually, it's a little bit more like a horseshoe, but anyway, you get the point. And then they're all yelling back and forth at each other, and hey, I got these bonds, I want to sell here. And then they're yelling at each other, and they're on the phone, calling Merrill Lynch and everybody else. But yeah, that's what it was like. So I mean, it's kind of exciting. It's I never knew that. I mean, I didn't even know that we had one at Edwards. I worked at AG Edwards. That's where I was until I applied for another job, and then I realized, oh wow, we have a trading floor here, and so it was kind of fun, exciting.
Is this just a floor in an office building in somewhere?
Yeah, it was up on I don't know, 15th, 16th floor of our building there, and yeah,
and all the traders there work for AG Edwards.
Yeah, they were all Edwards traders, but they're all on the phone with all the other big brokerage houses and swapping bonds back and forth and making deals.
Yeah, see, I can try to picture that, but conceptually, I just don't understand how all of that works, and I really want to.
Yeah,
but maybe that's a whole other podcast.
Well, and I'm not the guy to ask either. Like I said, I was in more support roles. So
right, it's like I want to work on a trading floor, and I want to be one of those guys screaming and yelling. I don't know exactly what I'd scream or yell or how that would work.
It just does seem fun, just being panicked and yelling.
It seems like a blast. It seems like the day would fly by after I've traded a couple $1 trillion in bonds.
Yeah.
Okay, so why'd you start the blog? You're working at AG Edwards. I know they eventually, I guess, merged with someone and let you go. But you started the blog before that, right?
Yeah.
So why'd you start a blog?
Well, because I was going through my own personal finance journey, and I felt I was learning so much. I had begun reading a bunch of personal finance blogs and books and everything I could get my hands on. And I was really excited about what was going on in our own financial life and how we were making so much progress paying off our debt and all this stuff. And I just kind of felt like I just want to share this. I can't hold this in. And the blog just seemed to be a great way to just start kind of communicating what I was learning and really just kind of start a conversation with some people about it. So that's kind of what kicked it off and what got me going. And it's one of those things where it's like I don't know how or why I just continued. I guess I enjoyed it enough, and I guess I was getting enough, positive reactions to just, keep me going. But
did it start when you launched your blog? Well, first of all, did you know how to even set up a blog, or were you learning kind of from scratch?
No, completely learning from scratch. I'm not a very technical person. Over the years, I've learned how to do a little bit of stuff with HTML and CSS and stuff. But no, I got into this. I didn't know anything, and just kind of had to figure out a lot as I went. So
yeah, and was it when you launched the blog? Were you thinking, "Hey, this is going to be a business," or is this just a hobby?
I think in the back of my mind, I was hoping to make a little bit of money from it. As far as making a full-time income, when I started, I knew of about 2 bloggers in the world who were actually making a full-time income. And so it seemed really, really slim chances. And so it was somewhere in the back of my brain, but I don't know if I really thought it was possible,
So then when you decide to make the leap and blog full-time, I guess rather than going and finding another job, that had to have been scary.
Oh yeah, I mean it was kind of terrifying, but kind of thrilling all at the same time. I mean, we were young, we didn't have any kids, and it was the time to take a risk like that, and we felt good about the decision. It's like we didn't, we just felt a peace about moving forward with it, and we did everything that we could to make it as wise of a decision as possible, as far as getting as much debt paid off as possible, having a big buffer of savings in the severance package and things like that. So, so I was just going to give it a go for 6-9 months, use up all the severance money if that happened, and then go get another day job if it didn't work out. So we had a plan. Everything was well thought out, but thankfully it did work out, and life's been perfect ever since.
Perfect, huh?
Yes.
Well, okay. So when you made the leap, you said your blog was not earning the equivalent of what you were making at the brokerage.
Yeah, not at all.
Was it making 50%?
No, I want to say we were probably making just a few $100s a month at that point.
Wow, that's a big leap.
Yeah. It was a kind of a dramatic shift. I mean, it was a pretty big change. And to kind of go into the whole thing, and there were some months before that where I was making a little bit more, but that previous month, the month when I got laid off, I think we made just a couple $100s. So it was definitely a big stretch. But like I said, we were able to take the risk, and glad we did.
Yeah. Well, how long after you made that jump did you finally realize, hey, this is going to work? I can do this full time.
Well, I think when I really realized it is when we actually made more in a given month than what I made at my day job, and that happened the following March. So March of 2009. So basically, in 9 months, we went from that couple $100 month to what I was making at the day job. Okay. Which wasn't a tremendous amount. Like I said, I was in operational roles. I mean, pretty entry level, but it was enough to replace my income, and that was good for us.
And what happened in those 9 months? What did you do? How did you go from a couple $100 to being able to support your family?
Well, I worked my butt off.
Oh, so this isn't easy? This isn't like an hour or two a day?
Yeah. No, it definitely wasn't then in that phase. So, I mean, I tell people this a lot because what it looks like is, nothing, so you went from that June to that next March and you took it from there to there. But really, a lot of the work happened the previous year, that foundational period where, not much growth was apparent and evident, but we were building a foundation with the site. We were building a foundation of readers. We were building a foundation of links, and all those different things. And if it wasn't for that previous year, I don't think it would have been possible at all. And that's the hard part that, so when people talk to me about earning and how long does it take and stuff like that, I mean, the first 6 months I made a total of $100. And I thought that was a lofty goal. And we made probably about $120 the whole first 6 months. And there was a lot of work involved. I mean, I was working part-time, but writing at least 3 blog posts every week. I mean, probably spending 15 plus hours on the site every week. So it's a good amount of work to put in with little return, particularly in the beginning months and year, really. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so to get to where you're talking about, so that was a really important part. But beyond that, it's I was now able to focus all of my time and energy on the site instead of just 15 hours a week or whatever. And one of the things I do and have always done is just guest posting, and that was the thing that really helped me a lot back then. I would just go write articles for anybody I could. I probably wrote one for you at some point back then. And any other site I could find, I would just do guest posts. And, so you're getting links back to your site, you're getting referral traffic, you're creating a name for yourself and for your site. And so anyway, so that was a really, really big, important part of the whole growth of that 9-month period.
Right. My experience is very similar to yours. I mean, I think the first 6 months I made about $100 too.
Yeah.
And you're putting in just ridiculous amounts of time, and you're putting the time in at weird hours of the day.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're working, a job. You were. So some folks listening to this may be thinking, yeah, a blog might be something they're interested in, but they're wondering, how does a blog make money?
Well, yeah, there's a variety of ways. I can talk about what we've done, and we mostly have about 3 or 4 different revenue streams. So AdSense or other cost per click ads, and those are just ads that you get paid when somebody clicks on them. Those have always been a pretty big portion of our earnings. And so that's one revenue stream. Affiliate marketing and things like that, which essentially is, if you're talking about, some brokerage firm on your site, you might get a commission for talking about them if somebody clicks a link and goes over and signs up for an account or something like that. So that's another avenue that we use. Then we also do some kind of CPM ads where we get paid not per click, but per 1,000 impressions. So, so we'll have different banner ads on our site that we get paid a few bucks for every 1,000 impressions. And so those are our big 3 streams. And now we're selling some books. So that's like another stream of income for us. But really, I mean, there's so many ways. I've seen a lot of bloggers who launch big consulting businesses just from their blog as well. And to be honest, stuff like that is a lot easier to, you can make a full-time living a lot quicker, if you're doing some kind of consulting or selling a course or something like that, rather than, doing kind of the model that I've taken and maybe a little bit how you've gone, Rob, where it's like we have to get a lot of traffic in order to generate a sizable income from it, with our business model.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people miss is, when people say, how do you make money blogging? And you've described a number of ways, that I use as well. But underlying all of that is you make money blogging by getting a lot of traffic to your blog.
Yeah.
If you have a blog with a lot of traffic, there will be a way to make money. I mean,
exactly.
I think you've probably outlined the more common ways, but as you said, you could have a consulting business. You could create your own product, whether it's an informational product or whatever. So there are other ways as well, but you got to get that traffic. And so I'm curious, and I know you mentioned your books, and I know you've got a couple about blogging. Mm-hmm. Including one you just recently released. Mm-hmm. But let's start with the first blogging book, which I think came out a number of years ago, but you've updated it. Is that right?
Yeah. So that March, when I finally made more for my blog than my day job, I decided, all right, I'll write an article about this and just tell people what I did. And actually, it was going to be a 10-part series. And I just decided to turn it into one big long article. So it was probably 8,000 words. I mean, pretty long and thorough article. So anyway, so that began getting pretty popular, and we were getting a lot of traffic to it. A lot of people were sharing it and stuff like that. And so, I don't know, maybe a year later, I had heard about Kindle on Amazon, and I'm like, I'll just release this as a Kindle book so people have an alternate way to download it. And I was going to list it for free. But Amazon wouldn't let me. They made me charge at least 99 cents for it. So I ended up putting it up on Kindle and selling it as an Amazon book. And then that began doing really well over at Amazon and getting a lot of downloads. And I've since figured out a way to get the price down to free. So it is actually free now over at Amazon. You can download it for free.
I'm looking at it now, and I see, is that a permanent? I know there's some ways you can do it free for like 5 days, but is this permanently free?
It is permanently free. I actually just finally got it to be free about a couple weeks ago. And I won't go into a big, long thing about this, but basically the short end of this, or the short story here is Amazon wants to be the cheapest on the internet. And so if you can list it elsewhere for free and then let Amazon know about it, they'll drop the price.
So what percent of that revenue do you get to keep?
Well, I don't get anything on it.
I'm just kidding.
Well, no, what's funny, though, is... what I wasn't sure about is, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but Amazon will give you, if they drop your price, and they do drop your price. So if your list price is $9.99 and they drop it to $7.99, they give you, they pay your commission based off that $9.99 price. So no matter what they drop it to, they pay you what your list price is.
Huh. Okay.
So anyway, so I was thinking, who knows? Maybe they will give me a little bit for each one of those, but. Anyway, they don't. Surprise, surprise.
No, I make fun, but I think it's terrific that you're willing to give that book away for free.
Well, yeah, I mean, because honestly, it's on the website for free as well. It's like I just wanted to give people another avenue to find it. Anyway,
that book is the one for like if someone's listening and they're a beginner.
Yeah,
that's kind of, or they have a blog that they've never monetized.
Yeah, it's very much the beginning. I tried to keep it as basic and simple as I could. But yeah, so that was kind of the first. That was kind of my experiment into this whole book writing Amazon world, And I essentially took this big long blog post, turned it into a Kindle book, and it did really well and was getting really good reviews and lots of downloads. And so, anyway, I decided.
How many times has it been downloaded?
With the free promos, I think I don't recall the last time, but probably about 25,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the free promos help. I mean, it's like and now it's completely free, but before that, I could do free promos, and sometimes I would get 1,000 downloads from one free promo. So yeah, it's been downloaded a lot.
Okay. And then you've written a more recent one that's more advanced.
Yeah, and so the new one I wrote is basically a follow up to that. It's called Pro Blogging Secrets, and that is, basically where I share a lot of the secret sauce and things I've learned over the last few years that I feel like have helped me really make this whole thing work, and that have kind of set my site apart as far as being a site that's actually making enough money to pay the bills versus something that's not.
Yeah, well, I read this book, and I even reviewed it on Amazon now that I think
you did, and I appreciate that.
The thing that I got to tell you, the thing that really ticked me off about your book is that...
Tell me.
Well, so, I've been doing this since 2007 as well. And while I recognize that we can all continue to learn, right, I figured, I know a lot about this business. And I found myself every couple of pages saying, I didn't know that. And tagging it on my iPad, that page. Yeah. Whether it was a plugin you mentioned or a strategy. I don't take this the wrong way, Bob. We've known each other for a while, but I was kind of surprised that I took so much away from the book, because you and I talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
And it just, I guess, kind of underscored for me just how much there is. You can never stop learning.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like we all have different. I mean, I'm absolutely convinced there's just as much I can learn from you, so you should probably write the next book. But it's like we all have different things that we've learned over the journey. And, if we all share our unique things that, we've kind of figured out, it's like, sure, there'll be some overlap, but I think there's a lot that will be unique to each one of us. And there's plenty we can learn,
Yeah. Well, I will, in the show notes to this, I will link to both of those books, as well as you have an author page on Amazon as well.
Yeah. Yep.
I Googled you. If you Google
me.
I did, and you get, the picture comes up, and it's like, who do you know at Google? It's like all kinds of good stuff comes up when I get your name, founder of ChristianPF. Oh, maybe it's because we're friends in Google Plus. Maybe that's why that comes up.
I'm not sure.
You got all these images of yourself, and you're like famous.
Yeah, if you want to call it that, go for it. So
if someone wants to start a blog, or maybe take their blog to the next level, do you have any advice for them?
Well, those are two different things, but I'll try to give some blanket advice. Well, kind of like we talked about it. The thing from writing the article a long time ago, I've gotten so many emails from readers and so many questions and so many. I want to start a blog. What should I do? And what I found in talking to a lot of new bloggers is so many of them view this as this really kind of get rich quick thing, I should say, and it's just not. This is something that. And it's fine if it's a hobby and you're not trying to make money from it or it's just kind of like, a little bit extra money is some icing on the cake. That's fine and that's great. But regardless, if you want to build an audience, if you want to have a blog that's, getting read and that has a potential to, make a few $100 or even a few $1,000s a month, you really got to work at it. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a couple months. If you really want to make it work, you're going to have to spend a couple years on it. And that doesn't mean that, you're not going to be making a little bit of money in that process, but it requires a lot of upfront work and energy. And that's not to, I'm not at all trying to scare anybody away. Because I think it's fun. And if you're writing about something that you really love and you're excited about, you're going to enjoy every step of the journey, regardless of how much you're making at the moment. It's, you're doing what you're excited and passionate about. So anyway, that would be my biggest advice, or maybe word of caution to new bloggers.
Well, the one thing about it is that I like about it is it takes very little money. Hosting is cheap, a few bucks a month. You are a domain name is whatever, $10-15 a year. And WordPress is free. You could maybe spend a little money on a premium theme, which for those that don't know what that is, just basically helps the way your site looks and add some functionality. But I mean, you can easily start a blog. I mean, when I think of the blogs that have sold, there are blogs out there that have sold for millions. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were started on a few bucks a month.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no business, that I know of that you can start as cheap as this.
I mean, the biggest investment is your time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So now that you've done this for a long time, obviously you've written books, you've got your site. What's a typical day in your life look like today? Typical work day? Well, you get up at about 11?
Well, I never really got up that late, but I got a new baby, so I don't really get to pick when I get up anymore. But anyway, at this point, kind of in the blogging career, I'm a bit more project oriented, and so I have a lot of help on the site. I have an editor who does a lot for me. I have a couple writers who are writing for me. So there's a variety of things going on where my role has changed a lot over the years. But anyway, at this point, I'm doing more projects, so I'm kind of focused on shorter term projects. Maybe a few weeks long or something like that. So, for example, this book that I just launched, I spent probably the last 2 months, working at least a few hours every day on the book. So writing it, and then, and it was self-published, so I had to do a lot of the work myself as far as designing the cover and outsourcing and get it edited and, all those different elements of book creation, I guess. So anyway, that was kind of a big project I was working on. I'm going on vacation soon, so I'm not going to do anything, which is going to be nice. And when I get back, I'm going to work on a new email course. We have a handful of email courses on our site, and that's been something that's worked well for us. So I'm going to create a new email course, and that'll probably take me another month or two, just kind of getting all that worked out. So anyway, day to day, it changes, it shifts. But yeah, I'm more project oriented at this point.
So does your blog, in terms of the content, is it when you go on vacation, things can continue to operate for a week while you're gone or whatever?
Yeah, I got some good help, and and WordPress allows you to schedule posts in advance. So yeah, I can step away pretty easily and take a break. So
you have an editor. Does the editor take the content, I assume, that your writers write and obviously edit it, but then they also upload it into WordPress?
Yep.
And then format it and everything. So they're sort of they're a copy editor as well, effectively.
Yeah.
Man, that's sweet. I need that kind of operation.
You need one of those.
Well, I've had an editor in the past who was fantastic, but she wasn't a copy editor, so she would just edit the content.
Yeah.
And sometimes have you experimented with having your writers input their articles in WordPress, or is that not work for you?
I do. Yeah, and all the writers on my site have always put the article on WordPress, and I probably could have done a better job kind of communicating and training them on maybe the formatting and stuff like that, and that probably would have saved a lot of time. But I unfortunately never did. So we needed the editor normally to come back in and make formatting adjustments just to match the style of our site and how we wanted to do things like that. But.
And does your editor come up with the graphics too, the images?
No, that's actually something that I'm doing right now, and it's mostly because I enjoy it. I just kind of enjoy. Yeah, I'm kind of a wannabe graphic designer, so I'm mostly doing the graphics. Yeah, like I said, just because I enjoy it. It's probably not the best use of my time, but I like it.
Right. Well, good. All right. Well, anything I haven't asked you that I should have? What have I left out?
I don't know. I don't know.
We've covered it all. What's your favorite personal finance book? If folks listening had time to read one personal finance book, besides of course the ones you've written, which I'll link to.
I hate saying this because it's so kind of cliche and he doesn't need any more promotion, but I feel like Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover could help more people in America than most personal finance books out there.
Good.
Just because it's such a simple step-by-step formula, and it's not a perfect formula for everybody, but there's a lot of people who could and who have been helped by that book. And so I still like it. I still recommend it when people kind of in tough financial spots send me an email. That's the one I'm recommending.
Yeah.
So.
Well, he's helped a lot of people. tackle their debt and get out of debt. And that seems
we
to be
should use that as a caveat. That's what that book's good for people trying to get out of debt.
Yeah. I mean, that's his wheelhouse. That's what he is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the experience he had personally, and with his own, as he talks about it a lot, his real estate business kind of cratered on him, and so he kind of learned the hard way, I guess, and as a lot of us do. Maybe not quite with the same numbers he had, but that's a great book, and it's helped. I know it's helped a lot of people. I mean, folks listening know I'm just not at all a fan of Dave when it comes to investing advice, but when it comes to getting out of debt, I mean, it's hard to find someone who's helped more people.
Well, I'll just throw in another recommendation as well, and I don't know how often you ask this question, but I believe it's called Your Money, Your Life. Was just another fantastic book, and it wasn't step by step at all. Maybe some elements are step by step.
Is that Your Money or Your Life?
I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, Your Money or Your Life. Great book.
There's just so much. Those guys I don't know. There's just a lot of aspects of money management that they just had some good ideas on, and it just if you read that book and allow it to kind of transform your thinking and your approach, I think your financial life will never be the same.
Yeah, it's a great book, and I'll link to both of those books in the show notes. But the thing about Your Money or Your Life, and it's been a while since I've read it, and this was me when I graduated from college, is I saw money as a way to buy a lifestyle, to buy stuff. I get a nice car, get a nice house, and that was a few decades ago. But now it's just totally changed. And to me, I see money as a way not to buy stuff, but to live a life that I want to live.
Yeah.
So it's changed dramatically for me. But Your Money and Your Life, I think, is a great book to help folks perhaps change their attitude and their thoughts about money. So that's a good one. Two good ones. Good. All right, man. Well, hey, Bob, I appreciate you coming on the show. I will definitely link to your books. And I should say, too, we've talked about your 2 blogging books, but you've also written Managing Money God's Way. Mm-hmm. Obviously, ChristianPF, Christian Personal Finance. So you write about personal finance from the perspective, you intertwine your faith and personal finance.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yep. And then you've also written How to Save Money, a 21-day challenge to save $500 a month. Yeah. So another good book. So I'll make sure folks know about those. So it's not all about blogging, but you've also got personal finance. You're really kind of making me feel like a lazy bum. I've started a book, and I've even gotten some listeners to help me, and it's kind of just floundered a bit, and I got to get my act together.
Podcasting is a lot of work.
I need an editor and some writers. Well, actually, I have a very good one. One of them that's helping me, but she got a full-time job, so she's stretched pretty thin. But she's done great. But anyway. All right, man. Well, listen, I appreciate your time, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Rob.
Well, there you have it. A great story. I love to hear those success stories, and it wasn't always easy for Bob, as you might imagine. Quitting a job and starting your own business, whether it's a blog or anything else, is a scary thing. It's obviously worked out well for Bob and his family, and I hope you found that inspiring. As I mentioned before at the top of the show, if you have any questions, whether it's for Bob or for me, shoot me an email. Happy to address them. I know Bob will be as well. Again, DoughRoller.net. As I've mentioned occasionally, blogging, which started out for me as just a hobby, has really made a huge impact in my life, both professionally, financially, and it's just, for me, has been a lot of fun. And frankly, this podcast has had the same impact. Which was, I started this podcast back in November of last year, and part of it was just I wanted to have fun. I wanted a different way to connect with folks, and it's been a huge success for me. And the biggest part of that success is not financial. It's the fact that the relationships that I'm now building with, frankly, with all of you. I get a ton of email, as I've mentioned. I mean, I don't read half of them. If I read every email I got, all I'd do is read email on this podcast. And I love that about this podcast. What it's done, it's opened up that sort of channel of communication, and I've learned a lot from folks. Hopefully I've been able to help people who have questions, whether I point them to resources or whatever, give them my 2 cents for whatever it's worth. But that's just been fantastic. And so a lot of fun and enjoyed it a lot. So anyway, I won't blather on here. If you have questions about any of this, like I said, shoot me an email. Love to hear from you. And again, if you have questions about anything related to personal finance, investing, money, whatever, love to hear that as well. dr@DoughRoller.net. Hey, until next time, remember, the best thing money can buy is financial freedom.